Next from Springfield, we hear a debate on the House floor over funding of the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Representative Jack Franks is particularly critical of the department, insisting it is a waste of taxpayer money and should be absolved altogether. This runs about 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates that he will.
I'd like to follow up on that DCEO budget, which is approaching $1.8 billion. And it appears that we want to spend an additional $25 million in GRF on job training programs. Is that correct, Mr. Sponsor? Mr. Crespo?
Yes, it is.
Is this, what's that based on? Is it based on the wonderful track record the governor's had on job placement programs?
Well, when you talk about the job training, let's be very clear. This is very specific to ETIP, which we've had so many manufacturing companies and businesses that have been asking for that and claim that it does work. It does also include the JTED program and the Employment Opportunities Grant Program. So these are very specific to those programs when we refer to job training. It's not just any kind of job.
Is it their violence prevention program in here?
No, it's not.
Okay. Where do we stand? I saw today the new numbers that we were touting, that our unemployment's gone down to just under 8%. But isn't it true that we're still the third worst in the entire nation when it comes to the unemployment rate?
I haven't seen that report.
Yeah,
Jack.
came out today. What concerns me is we keep doing the same things with DCEO, and it's clear that it isn't working. We've done the EDGE programs and the special EDGE, and we passed something in committee yesterday. But the governor has been focused on job retention while using false definitions of retention. In this Orwellian world of Governor Quinn, job retention somehow means loss of jobs. It seems that the governor's idea of job creation is to pay companies to fire tax-paying Illinoisans. Because what we do is we turn and we give them hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks, many of which for companies that don't even pay taxes in this state, so they can turn around and fire tax-paying Illinoisans. Now, I don't think that's a very sound policy. Then what we do is we're talking about raising our tax rates here and continuing the tax rate that we supposed to be temporary, because all these votes are a precursor to a tax increase. Yet you're talking about trying to attract businesses and grow jobs while at the same time saying, we're going to raise taxes. Now, my suggestion would be to line item out DCEO and save $1.8 billion. And I'll tell you why. Because if we cut out that $1.8 billion, and then we do the stuff we talked about in the lottery yesterday, that's about $2.5 billion in revenue, and we don't need a tax increase. Because once you do the tax increase, you're not going to get employers. What is the incentive for an employer to come to this state or to create jobs when we're talking about raising taxes? So why don't we line item out DCEO's $1.8 billion, because there ain't enough money they can throw at companies to come to this state when we're raising taxes and saying we got to throw in more money for pensions. We're not fixing that. So why don't we cut out this dough and we could really fix the budget that way? That's a question.
So listen, I appreciate the comments, and again, let me be very specific. The job training dollars that we're talking about here have to do with ETIP, JTED, and the Employment Opportunities Grant Program. I think you're referencing the EDGE program, which is not contained here. So I'm with you on the EDGE program, but that's not what I'm talking about with the job training.
No,
I appreciate the energy and the excitement on the EDGE. It has nothing to do with this.
No, I appreciate it, but you know what, folks? There's no more reason to have a DCEO. There is no reason to have a Commerce and Economic Opportunity Agency when we are raising taxes. Their job is to bring business. I tell you, Bobby Jindal in Louisiana jettisoned their DCEO. They did just fine. If you want to bring jobs, cut the tax rate. It's very simple. We don't need to spend $1.8 billion. I think that this governor's introduced budget here, his proposal, is a fantasy wrapped in a delusion. There is a fantasy wrapped in a delusion. And here we are, we don't even have the dough, we don't have the money. As I said before, it's imaginary money. Can you show me the money, Mr. Crespo? Show me the money, Mr. Crespo. I need more than that, Mr. Harris, but it's a start. You're asking us to vote and give you an extra $1.8 billion for an agency that is obsolete. If we're going to fix our budget, if we're going to fix our state, it's time to start cutting extraneous agencies. Zero them out, give them nothing. Vote no.
Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the sponsor yield.
The sponsor will yield.
Representative Crespo, one of the responsibilities of DCEO is not only to attract business, but to...
Al, I'm sorry, but I'm having a really difficult time. If you guys here can just please move out of the way, and I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Al. Go ahead.
not only to attract business, but to retain business also.
Sure. The whole economic development, which we talk about all the time, does require an investment, and that's basically what we're talking about here.
I have a number of large businesses in my district, and some of my surrounding representatives, one in particular, MyJack, that a lot of people know about, that basically love DCEO and some of the things that they have done to help them expand. Their headquarters is in one of my towns, and actually there's a lot of businesses that when we meet think that the agency is not quite doing enough. And so thank you for all of the work that you've done. One of the things I want to point out, some of the other speakers have talked about the governor. Well, a lot of these programs that are listed here, like EOGP, many of us created. And we created them for particular purposes. The other thing I want to point out also is that all of these programs are really beyond reproach. They've been around a long time. One of the things that DCEO does is, again, to promote job creation and job training is run by a lot of our community colleges and is also run by a lot of our WIAs, the workforce investment area programs. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you for your work you've done. I request aye votes on this bill.
Thank you, Al.
Representative Sandak.
Thank you. To the spending bill, please, Mr. Speaker. There was a previous speaker who looked like he was looking at us the whole time he was speaking. The gentleman from McHenry who was talking, it looked like he was talking to us. And I want to say, come over to the water. It's warm on our side. It's warm and comfortable. Because the speaker from
members, thank you.
Because that speaker was eloquent, was to the point, and nary a word out of his mouth could have been actually debated. The fact of the matter is there's plenty of areas in this budget that should be cut, that shouldn't even exist. We're continuing to spend and spend and spend. Since, 10, 15 this morning, we've run 20 or so bills without one responsible word on how we're going to pay for it. So I want to thank the gentleman from McHenry for his words of wisdom. Let him know that the water is warm over here, and take a few more of his brethren here with us, because it's time for some sense and sensibility in this process. It has been senseless and absolutely an embarrassment to this august assembly to continue to spend and spend and spend again. Stop it. Just stop it. Vote no.
Representative Sullivan.
Will the sponsor yield?
Sponsor will yield.
Representative, I want to take you back to the appropriation hearing when DCEO Director Pollitt testified before the General Services Appropriate Committee a few weeks back. During that discussion with Director Pollitt, I referenced $10 million that were spent on the Neighborhood Recovery Initiative. Do you remember that conversation that I had with him?
I don't recall. Are you talking about our appropriations, or are you talking about general services? Our appropriations when he came? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So in that conversation, we discussed 3 different areas that money passed through DCO in the Troubled Neighborhood Recovery Initiative. One of them was for a federal microloan program, and I think in total was $10 million. In that discussion with Director, I asked if the records that were turned over to the state's attorney in Cook County would be presented to our committee and the members of our committee. Do you remember that conversation?
Correct.
Have you heard from the director who agreed to turn those records over to us?
No, I have not. I know that the documents were sent to the state's attorney, although I understand that they didn't even subpoena for the information, but he willingly gave it to her. I'll be more than happy to follow up, because I do recall that you did make a request that he submit that information to.
And kindly, he did agree to do that, and I said you can direct.
I believe he said he had to go and check with legal before he can give us an opinion, but I do recall the conversation taking place, and I think his response was he had to go back and check with legal staff.
Well, I'd like to
okay.
solicit your help in trying to work with the director to have those turned over, and maybe we could work it out by the end of the week.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Representative Martino.
E.F. Hutton, yeah. Must be. I wanted to rise in support of this budget itself, and also to say that some of the programs have been very, very successfully utilized here within the state of Illinois. I know in my region, the last 4 major locations of both manufacturing and logistics have come through the expertise of the folks in this agency. And we've seen an increase in the employment. As a matter of fact, I see that today the unemployment for Illinois fell to 7.9% on here, lowest point since 2008. We have had some increases. We're doing some things right throughout the state of Illinois. This is part of our process. This agency has brought new jobs to the state of Illinois, and it has helped us to negotiate and compete against our fellow states who have the same agencies. I find that it would be irresponsible to eliminate the Economic Development Agency for the state of Illinois when we are in fact in search of creating new jobs, attracting new businesses, looking at rewriting our tax codes as they currently exist, reducing our stores of old bills, changing our unemployment structure so that the trust fund, did not go broke. And in the midst of that, you need an economic development agency. So I commend the chairman and the members of that committee and would ask for aye votes for the state's economic development agency that helps us to work towards falling unemployment numbers, lowest since 2008, increase of job placements, and if we want to talk about jobs, we should be investing more in the agencies that bring us actual jobs and work. Vote aye.
Representative Kaye.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor yield?
Sponsor will yield.
Representative, I commend you for your work on this, but do you find any merit whatsoever to the comments that Representative Franks had, and particularly with regard to DECO?
If you're talking about Poetic Jack, it was very entertaining. I want to let Leader Sandak know that there's a tax incentive if you adopt a certain representative from McHenry County. Listen, I heard what he had to say, but again, it has nothing to do with the job training items included in this bill. He was referring mostly, if I understood correctly, with the EDGE program. Some of the other tax incentives are offered to businesses. which is not the job training here with E-TIP and some of the other items that we have on this bill. So, whereas it was very entertaining, I'll give him that, it didn't really talk about the bill at hand.
Well, I took it a different way. It may have been entertaining, but for a businessman, it made a lot of sense. And let me just say this to you. Whether there are some good things or some things that may have marginal effect on business in Illinois, I have not heard of them. Others have spoke to it, so I take them at their word. But let's face it. Let's be very clear. Until you clean up the legal climate, you actually do workers' compensation reform, and you bring true tax reform to this state, you can have DECO 3 times, 10 times, 20 times over, and it's not going to make any difference. And Jack Franks doesn't need to say that. I will. And I'm a big business guy in Illinois. And I know what's driving business out. And DECO is not going to bring anybody in, and it's not going to keep anybody in. So my question was very serious because I wanted you to take it in a serious note. Jack may be entertaining. I don't know about that. But I thought his comments should be taken seriously, and so that's why I asked the question, and I hope you take it seriously, because the issue of spending $1.8 billion for something that has no relevance and not addressing the 3 problems that this state has in the minds of businesses is just patently wrong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Crespo to close.
Thank you, Speaker. And to the previous representative, I do take this very seriously. Again, the comments that were made on behalf of my side here had nothing to do with this bill. It was a whole different topic. So with that, I just ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Question is, shall House Bill 6149 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Representative Ms. Clerk, please take the record on the count of 61 voting yes, 54 voting no, and 0 voting present. House Bill 6149, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Representative Boss, Region DC Recognition.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.